Chapter 1 Bailey House. All along Ireland's eastern rim, from Belfast south to Dublin, and from the shores of the Irish Sea to the inland valleys, acre upon rolling acre of potato, wheat, and barley fields lay dormant, their bounty long since harvested. Over hill and dale, enchanting groves of elm, oak, and birch now stand bare, their rich leafy hues whisked away by the autumn gales, leaving the once charming landscape cloaked in coastal fog and morning frost, its shimmering coat like icing on the cold empty fields. Just 10 furlongs north of Dublin, set amongst the many castles, abbeys, and Neolithic monuments of Meath County, rests the farming village of Rogerstown, on the outskirts of which are several farms, the grandest of them all resting to the north at the end of an old cart path, its acre upon rolling acre of sprawling fields encompassing the farm's impressive barn and 5-story tower house, its beautiful wooden roof and stone walls shrouded by the dense morning fog. The house was built by Englishman Arthur Bailey upon his arrival to Ireland in 1641, and for the next 17 years he and his family called the massive structure home, while growing the sprawling farm into one of the county's finest. Sadly, however, with the untimely deaths of his wife and children from illness in 1658, and difficulty securing workers, the once prominent farm has since fallen into decline. The outskirts of Rogerstown, Meath County, Ireland, a cold and early morning, fall 1664. Wrapped in a thick wool blanket covered with morning dew, a young couple sleeps wrapped in each other's arms beneath an old oak, their ship from Liverpool having arrived in Dublin the morning before. In England, they were told of a demand for farm work in these parts, and after stepping off the boat, they learned from Dubliners that farm work could be found in the inland coastal areas north of town. "That's right, lad. Just follow the cart path at the north end of town and keep walking. You'll know it when you get there. Trust me." Knowing what they seek is just north of town, there was one more thing they needed to do before heading in that direction. That one thing being the very reason they came to Ireland in the first place: to elope. A feat they learned not easily achieved. Nevertheless, a few hours after disembarking, they were able to locate and make arrangements with a local cleric to exchange their vows. With their knot officially tied, they headed north in search of work and an opportunity to begin their lives anew as husband and wife. Their journey has been long, dangerous, and exhausting, and their wedding day was more of the same, minus the dangerous part. For after walking several hours, they had still yet to reach the farming community the Dubliners spoke of. But the fading light, cold wind, and their aching feet told them enough was enough, and it was time to find a suitable place to bed down for the night. A quarter-mile later they came upon an old oak just off the cart path, beneath which lay a massive log surrounded by large shrubs. Tired and sore, they hurried to its sanctuary out of the wind. With darkness falling, the groom quickly gathered some wood and lit a fire, while his bride fashioned a comfy bed of dead leaves, covering them with a thick wool blanket. With morning now upon them, the 22-year-old groom is awakened by a trio of finches ascending from their nests, each in search of a morning meal. To the east, a battle between the morning fog and early sun rages, casting a dim, misty glow across the land. Laying with his beautiful new bride, the groom watches as the trio frolics from branch to branch, down to the ground and back up again, dancing and chasing each other like small children as they sing and play. He thinks to himself how the simplest of things are often the most beautiful, and how lucky he is to be in that moment laying with this beautiful woman. Just then a snort shatters the serenity. Peering down at his 18-year-old bride, his eyes widen when another one billows from her like a hibernating bear. Chuckling to himself, he recalls how she swore she did not snore, although he quickly concedes there had been no mention of snorting. Careful not to wake her, he picks up a strand of straw and brings it to her nose, gently tickling her before clamping his eyes shut. Spying through squinted eyes, he watches her swipe at her nose, shooing the incessant pest, disturbing her blissful slumber. As she falls back to sleep, he tickles her again. This time her eyes pop open, but only ever so briefly. Pressing his luck, he tries again, only this time to be caught in the act. Popping upward, she smacks his chest. He laughs, and she smacks him again, before giving him a stank-eyed glare and laying her head on his chest. "You're a devil!" "That's funny. I thought that was the part you loved about me," he says, tickling her ribs. She looks up at him with flirtatious eyes and barks. "Not when you're waking me up! After all the walking we've done, I'm so tired I could sleep all day." "Believe when I say that makes two of us. But a new day dawns, and we've to find work, because right now the only thing standing between us and starvation is a handful of scones. And if it gets any colder, sleeping outside like we did last night will become very uncomfortable." She nods, patting him on the chest. Then, surrendering to the new day, she sits up, stretching and yawning. And with that, they roll to their feet and brush off the morning dew. As he packs their bedroll, she rubs her hands together, taking in the frosty scene. Handing her a scone, he asks, "Hungry?" "Yes, thank you." He bows. "At your service, my queen." Breaking into laughter, she blurts, "Let me guess. Court gesture?" He stares at her stone-faced. "Oh, you're real funny. You are. You're a funny one." "No, you are." "What? You didn't like my bow?" "I'm sorry. I thought it were a curtsy." "A curtsy?" "That's what I said." As their playful banter carries on, he slings their bedroll over his shoulder, and they get back on the road. Continuing their journey north, they soon come upon a sign that reads, "Rogerstown." Looking past the sign, they spot a farmhouse and a barn in the distance. He gives his bride a one-armed hug. "If I'm not mistaken, we have officially arrived." She sighs. "Finally!" They have been traveling for 8 exhausting days from central England and are praying this will be the end of their journey. Through the misty fog, they spy a man scraping a horse's hooves near the barn. As they approach, the husband shouts, "Good morning!" Releasing the horse's leg, the man slowly turns to them. "Well, top of the morn to ya!" "Please forgive the intrusion, sir, but we've heard there might be work in these parts." With a stroke of his beard, the man replies, "I'm guessing you're not from around here." "No, sir, we're not. Fresh off the boat, in fact." "I see. England?" "Guilty as charged, sir," the groom admits. Wiping his brow, the man replies, "Well, I'm full up here, but you'll likely have better luck at the next farm up the road. Ask for Mr. Bailey." "Bailey?" "Aye, Arthur Bailey. Tell them Brosnan sent ya." The groom nods and waves. "We'll do that, Mr. Brosnan." "Thank you, sir. We're truly grateful." "You're welcome, lad. Best of luck to you." Following Mr. Brosnan's advice, the travel-weary couple push on to the next farm. As they come over a rise, they spot a massive stone tower house and barn about 200 yards away. Squinting, they spy what appears to be a man brushing a horse outside the barn. When they reach the edge of the barnyard, the groom calls out to him, "Good morning, fine sir." Turning his head ever so slightly, he sizes them up through the corner of his eye. What he spies is a 6-foot-tall, broad-chested young man, with arms and legs clearly chiseled by farm life. When he turns to face them, the young man throws him a charming smile. He has mahogany eyes and matching hair pulled back in a ponytail. Beside him is a lovely young lass about a half-foot shorter, with wavy golden locks that fall past her shoulders and a pair of baby blue eyes that wrap you in a hug when she smiles. He glares at them suspiciously. "Top of the morn. Might you be Mr. Bailey?" the groom asks. "Well, that depends. Who's asking?" "Well, sir, my wife and I are new in town, and we're looking for work. We spoke with Mr. Brosnan up the road, and he said you might be needing workers." Still sizing them up, he replies, "Aye, I might." Then with a shrug, he slaps his hands on his hips. "So, tell me then, what skills have you?" The groom straightens himself. "Sir, I'm proud to say I've spent my whole life working on my family's farm, and frankly, there's nothing on a farm I can't do. Furthermore, my wife here is a fine cook, and she's well versed with animals." Stepping forward, his bride adds, "I'm especially good with sheep, sir. Not only can I care for 'em, but I can both shear, spin, and butcher 'em, too." The man brings a hand to his chin with a raise of his brow. "You don't say." Nodding, he covers a nostril, and with a hearty blow, shoots a nugget to the ground. The newlyweds exchange an awkward glance. Wiping his nose on his sleeve, he continues, "So, you say you're new here, but I'm guessing by the sound of you, you're fresh off the boat. Where are you from?" "Quarndon, England, Derbyshire," the groom answers. Lost in his memories, the man gazes into the distance and sighs. "Aye, plush green farmland in those parts. 'Tis beautiful there, that's for certain." "So, you're familiar?" The man laughs. "Familiar? Aye, considering I grew up in a village near Nottingham." "Nottingham? Oh, then you know it well." "Indeed I do, lad." Seizing the moment, the groom adds, "Then you'll also know any man hailing from those parts is well versed in the ways of the land." The farmer chuckles. "Aye, where do you think I learned? Arthur Bailey, welcome to the Meath." The groom smiles, shaking his hand firmly. James Albin. 'Tis a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Bailey. And this is my wife, Anne." Placing his right hand over his heart, with his left not so gracefully slung to his side, he bows awkwardly to the young bride. "Arthur Bailey, 'tis a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Mrs. Albin." As he bows, Anne sneaks a peek at James, who is glaring back at her, nodding with a raised brow and a half-smile. As Arthur straightens, they turn back to him. Extending a hand, James says, "Give us a week to prove ourselves." Arthur stares at his hand, scratching his chin. "You have my word, Mr. Bailey. If you're not pleased with our work, we'll leave without pay, and you'll never see us again. What say you?" "Well, things are picking up around here, and, as it turns out, 3 of me workers were just giving back their land as a result of the so-called Act of Explanation, whatever the bloody hell that means. But never you mind that. What matters is, Mr. Brosnan were right. I do be needing some help. That said, I guess it's your lucky day." Excitedly, James blurts, "So we're hired? And why no? After all, you're practically from your hometown, which means we're practically family already. Now, what kind of man would I be if I sent you on your way? So, when can I start?" In the years that follow, James and Anne continue to live and work on the Bailey farm, while birthing and raising their 10 children there. At Arthur's side, they toil and bleed, restoring the farm to its former glory, while their union of blood, sweat, laughter, and tears creates an unbreakable bond between them. Affectionately referred to as Papa B, Arthur becomes the only grandfather figure the Albin children will ever know. As for Arthur, the young couple and their children fill the void left by his wife and children. Together, they live and thrive under the roof of the farm's centerpiece and Arthur's pride and joy, the magnificent stone tower house. Bailey Farm, on the outskirts of Rogerstown, Meath County, Ireland, 24 years later, an early fall morning, 1688. While her family and the other workers are out tending to their chores, Anne Margaret stands in the tower house's third-floor kitchen preparing breakfast. She is working feverishly when she hears a heavy cough coming down the stairs. Seconds later, Papa B emerges from the hall. "Arthur, was that you I heard?" He clears his throat and with a raspy voice replies, "Aye, I've a bloody frog in me throat. Been haunting me for weeks." Crossing her arms, she stares him down. "A frog, you say? If when you ask me, it sounds more like a toad." "Well, whatever it be, I wish you'd move along. I've had enough already." "Arthur, you need your strength. Let me fetch you a bite to eat." "Nay, the horses need tending, and I'm already late." "Horses, you say? Well, if when you ask me, the only horse needs tending is the one in your throat. Let me fix you a nice hot cup of tea and honey. It'll help with your cough." Trying to avoid the conversation, Arthur inches towards the stairwell. On the verge of a clean escape, he stops, rolls his eyes back, and bites down on his bottom lip, knowing full well she will keep after him. Raising a finger, his eyes grow wide, and like a shady pirate, he rolls his eyes in her direction. "I'll make you a parley. Bring it to the barn, and I'll sip it while I work." When she turns to answer, all she sees is his backside scurrying down the stairs, hacking as he goes. She shouts at the stairwell, "You're stubborn as a mule!" Making his escape, Arthur heads out the door and across the yard to the barn. James, who is heading to the house, spots him scurrying out the door and hollers, "Good morning, Arthur." Grumbling, he blows right past him. "How can I know till all your days are counted?" Looking back at him as he heads for the barn, he ponders the old man's words, and with a shrug continues into the house. Nearly to the barn, Arthur spies James Jr. and his eldest brother Robert chopping wood across the yard. They wave and he waves back. Then Papa B slips into the barn out of sight. Back in the kitchen, "Good morning, love." "Well, good morning, sleepyhead." "Sleepyhead? Why, the boys and I have been chopping wood since before dawn." "That's nice, dear. Porridge is in the pot. Help yourself," she says with a dismissive wave as she blows past him and down the stairs with Arthur's tea. Perplexed, he mumbles, "Help myself." Leaving her husband stone-faced, Anne hurries to the barn. As she enters, she is surprised not to see him or hear his incessant cough. "Arthur, I brought your tea, old Dobbin." When there is no response, she searches the barn, slowly at first, then frantically. Spotting an open stall, she dashes over to investigate. As the stall comes into view, the teacup crashes to the ground. "Arthur!" The Bailey Farm, on the outskirts of Rogerstown, Meath County, Ireland, 5 days later. A brisk fall morning, 1688. For James Sr., the days following Arthur's death are a whirlwind. Standing at his grave, memories of his great-grandfather's funeral flash through his mind as shovels of dirt cascade over the casket. As the crowd of mourners dissipates, he and Anne walk arm in arm, discussing the fact that in addition to losing their dearest friend, they just buried their employer and no longer have jobs or a home. He pulls Anne closer. "All I know for sure is we've started over before, and we can do it again. Trust in the Lord, dear. Trust in the Lord." Just then, a finely dressed gentleman in a black wool suit approaches them. "Mr. and Mrs. Albin, please forgive the intrusion, as I know this is a difficult time. Allow me to introduce myself." Removing his hat, he bows slightly. "Samuel Baker, Esquire." Anne and her husband exchange a glance before returning their gaze to the man stone-faced. Seeing their confusion, Mr. Baker attempts to clear the air. "Please allow me to explain. You see, I'm Mr. Bailey's barrister." Senior looks at him, head tilted. "Barrister?" Clearing his throat, Mr. Baker continues. If and I may, there are urgent matters we need to discuss. Senior squints his eyes. Matters? And blurts, Discuss? Seeing the exhaustion and despair in their eyes, the barrister continues. First, let me begin by saying how terribly sorry I am for your loss. I know how close you were with Mr. Bailey. On a brighter note, I have some life-changing news for you. Exasperated, Anne snaps. Life-changing, you say? Mr. Baker, I'm no sure I can handle any more life-changing news. No today. The barrister pauses for a moment, then throws a finger in the air. Aye, however, I don't think you fully understand me meaning. You see, Mr. Bailey left me very specific instructions, and it is therefore me duty to carry out those instructions. Senior and his wife exchange another glance. The barrister reaches into his inner coat pocket, removing an envelope. Pulling a handwritten note from it, he hands it to Senior. The first of which is to give you this. Senior starts to read. Well, what's it say? His wife queries. He glances at her briefly, then returns his eyes to the note and begins reading out loud. To James Alban Sr. and his beloved wife Anne Margaret, the son and daughter-in-law I never had. Pausing, James looks at Anne, then continues. If in your reading this letter, I have passed on to be with me wife and daughters in the hereafter. So, more not for me, as I have dreamt of casting me eyes on their lovely faces for far too long. And now I am here with them. Before you came into me life, me heart had grown cold and bitter. But you changed that. You gave the farm all you had, welcomed me into your family, and reminded me what it meant to love and be loved. From the depths of me heart, thank you. You and your family made me a cold stone house a warm and cheerful home again. You filled its walls and me heart with joy. It is for this reason I leave her in your capable hands. She is yours, for I can think of no other who would care for her as I know you will. I pray you continue to live as happily as I have these last many years with you. Love her as you have always loved her, and she will love you back. Me barrister, the Honourable Samuel Baker, Esquire, has assured me all the necessary legal documents are in order and awaiting your endorsement. From the bottom of me heart, thank you for the best years of me life. I pray the best of yours lay ahead. With love and admiration, Papa B. Dropping his hands to his sides, James Sr. blurts, But, chiming in with a hand to his heart, the barrister says, I'm no sure if you're aware, but Arthur's no been feeling well for some time. He actually came to me with this a little more than 3 years ago. And if I'm really being honest, I think he and I were both surprised he lived as long as he did. The Albans look at him stone-faced. Raising a finger again, the barrister adds, And, you should know, Arthur spoke very highly of you and your family, Mr. Alban. Turning his eyes to the children, he watches them console each other as they walk back to the house. And now, I could see why. Turning his eyes back to James Sr., he says, And, in case you didn't know, and I think you should, he loved you like a son. James looks at the letter, then slowly lifts his eyes to his wife before turning to Bailey House. If it's true, if the farm truly be ours, then the Alban farm it shall be, but our home will always be Bailey House. Alban Farm Hunting Grounds, Rogerstown, Meath County, Ireland, 34 years later. Early Christmas morning, Friday, December 25th, 1722. Once again, the cold, misty coastal fog is blanketing Bailey House, shrouding it and the entire estate in a haze of limited visibility. Nevertheless, the traditional Christmas hunt must go on, just as it has since James Sr.'s arrival in 1664. And despite the fact he moves a little slower, at 80 years old, James Sr. still has the heart of a lion, or so he believes. Even after losing his beloved Anne Margaret 30 years earlier and having outlived 7 of his 10 children, he still gets up every morning and helps his sons around the family farm. And once a year, come rain or shine, he always goes out for his annual Christmas hunt. For 58 years he has kept this tradition alive, each year taking different friends and family to accompany him, and this year will be no different. Walking in front of him as always and leading the way is Bartholomew, his faithful Irish wolfhound, his nose sniffing the air and ground incessantly as he walks along. At Senior's side is his best friend and splitting image of his younger self, William Bruce, with his striking features, wavy long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, his mahogany brown eyes and muscular 6-foot farm boy physique. William is a 22-year-old version of his grandfather. And for cherries on the cake, he boasts a winning combination of a charming smile and quick wit. Behind them in the distance is William's tall, slender, shaggy, red-headed 13-year-old brother, James III. Beside him is William's father, Robert John, or R.J. as most people call him. He is the youngest of Senior's living sons, and by the looks of him, he is a well-fed, older version of his 13-year-old son. Walking closely behind him is Senior's second and eldest living son, the always well-dressed, well-groomed, tall, lean, and lengthy tailor of fine apparel, James Jr. So dapper and color-coordinated is he, his suit, hat, hair, and eyes all boast the same shade of brown. Today, the Alban men are on a mission to fill their Christmas platters with tasty fowl. They have been walking the property for hours, but have yet to spy so much as a single turkey, pheasant, partridge, or grouse. And at this point, their Christmas feast is looking to be a lean affair. Suddenly, and without warning, R.J. blazes past William and his grandfather, with James III following close behind. As they run past, R.J. hollers, "You'll never catch a bird with that bloody mutt tagging along." Senior waves a fist at him. "Yeah? Well, that bloody mutt has saved your arse a time or 3. R.J. huffs. "That might be true, da, but you're so bloody deaf you canna hear the racket he's making." Senior barks. "Don't worry about me and Bartholomew, mister. We'll be just fine." As William laughs at his elders, James Jr. catches up with him, leaning in near his ear. "You know he only keeps that dog around so he won't get lost." William suppresses a laugh, and his uncle continues. "Think about it. All he must do is wait for supper. You think that old dog don't know where his supper's served?" William blurts out a laugh, drawing Senior's attention. "Whatever it be, it must have been funny. Look at you. You blew a booger on your coat." Thinking fast, the young protege spots the culprit on his coat and wipes it away. "Oh, Uncle James were just saying how funny it's going to be when you finish the hunt with the biggest bird." Senior roars. "Aye, and I'll be laughing at your da all the way home, too." Before scampering away, James Jr. rolls his eyes and says, "Good luck, da. I'm going with R.J." As Junior runs off, Senior eyeballs an inviting log and changes direction. Quick as he is able, he walks over and plops down with an exasperated sigh. "For the love of Christ, I thought they'd never leave." With his fowler over his right shoulder, William regards his grandfather with a half smile, chuckling a little and shaking his head. Stroking Bartholomew, Senior looks at him with his wise old eyes. "You see, this old dog needs his rest, lest I'll be carrying him home. And at this point, 'tis enough just to get myself home." William chuckles. "Well, we can't be having that now, can we?" "I should think no," Senior replies. With Bartholomew laying comfortably at his feet, Senior retrieves a pipe and tobacco from his heavy coat and starts packing the bowl. "William, light the fire for me, lad. I canna feel me hands." "That, and you'll be needing something to light that pipe," William says, pulling out his knife and flint. A few strikes later, the fire is burning, and Senior lights a twig to stoke his pipe. As he puffs, wisps of smoke furl from his lips and pipe. "Thanks for the fire, lad." I'd say you're a gentleman and scholar, but nay. You, me fine young lad, are a lifetime member of the Brotherhood of Warrior Hunters." Then pointing his pipe for emphasis, he adds, "Aye, that's what you are, a warrior hunter." William acknowledges him with a wave, then turns to walk away. "Happy to be of service, Grandad," Senior shouts. "Where in blazes are you going?" "I'm a charter member of the Brotherhood of Warrior Hunters. I need to go kill something." With an exhausted wave, Senior hollers, "Go on, then. I'll stay here with Bartholomew. Just pick us up on your way home." With a two-fingered salute, he hollers, "Sorry, Grandad, but I will pick you up on my way back." Senior gives him a wave, and he slips out of sight. A short while later, William is making his way through the trees when he happens upon a rafter of wild turkeys. Several yards from his prey, he crouches in the bushes watching as they peck away at the frosty ground, each of them taking turns popping their heads up to scan for predators. Of the 6 birds, 2 healthy hens stand side by side, alternating between feeding and watching. Head up, head down, head up, head down. William slowly raises his fowler, taking aim at the bird on lookout. Its chest up, bold and broad, offering a clean shot. He is just about to squeeze the trigger when the other hen's head pops up. Sliding his aim in between them, he pulls the trigger. Rushing towards the hens, he hears a fowler erupt to the north, followed by yet another. As he runs up on the turkeys, he finds them laying side by side just a few feet apart. With a bird in each hand, he laughs. "Now that's what I call 2 birds with 1 stone." A few minutes later, he emerges from the trees not far from where he left his grandfather. Peering through the fog, he spots the fire and moves in that direction. Squinting, he spies Senior and Bartholomew blissfully snoring. Senior on the log, mouth wide, and his faithful hound laying at his feet. As he approaches, William looks around to ensure he's alone. Seeing there was no one else in sight, he points his fowler into the air and pulls the trigger, startling the sleeping beauties from their slumber. Senior nearly falls off the log, jumping to his feet, wide-eyed and disoriented, while Bartholomew merely lifts his head and goes back to sleep. Meanwhile, William comes running up with a gobbler in each hand, shouting, "Great shot, Grandpa!" Squinting, Senior leans forward. "Great shot!" "Aye, you got him!" The elder Alban peers at him with a crooked smile and a raised left brow. "You don't say!" William nods emphatically, and Senior nods back. "Show me, then." William lifts the bigger bird for Senior to inspect. "See? Now that's a huge hen." Plopping the smaller bird on the ground in front of his granddad, he adds, "Far bigger than mine. Look." Cleverly, he lays the bigger bird on the ground next to his. "See? So, I'm to believe this here bird is mine, is that it?" As Senior leans forward, inspecting the birds, William slyly swaps his fowler with Senior's. Stepping back, William looks at him with a half-smile and wide eyes. "I know, I can't believe it either, but there's no denying it. Yours is the biggest bird of the day." "You've bested me, Grandad. Well done." Squinting with one eye, Senior peers back at him. "I see. So, that's how you're playing it, then?" William shakes his head. "What?" Senior tilts his head back, glaring at him with a wave of his hand. "Lend an ear, lad, for I've a story to tell. 'Tis a funny one. You'll like it. You see, there were this old man in the woods with his dog, and here's the funny part. They were both napping, so neither of 'em knows shite about shooting a bird." But William sticks to his story. "Sure he did. Look." Reaching for the planted fowler, he shows him the discharged weapon. "See? You sure shot something." Staring William down, Senior plucks a twig from the fire and lights his pipe. "Now listen, lad. I may be old, but I've still me wits about me, and I know damn good and well that fowler ain't mine." William's right brow slowly raises as Senior reaches out and slips the other fowler from his shoulder. Tapping the stock where his initials are carved, he says, "But this one is." William throws a hand to his forehead in shock. "Now how'd that happen?" Senior waves a hand at him, chuckling. "Nice try, lad, but I dinna shoot that bird." Just then William's charming smile appears. Throwing his grandfather a confident wink, he whispers, "Aye, but they don't know that." As William leans back, a sinister grin curls onto Senior's face, and he lets out a belly laugh. "Right you are, lad, right you are." As they share a hearty laugh, the other three hunters emerge from the tree line empty-handed. Spotting them, Senior whispers, "You see that?" "See what?" "I don't see anything." With a sinister grin, he replies, "Precisely." They exchange a pirate's grin, and Senior shouts, "I don't be seeing any birds." Then, after a well-timed pause, he adds, "No to worry, though, lads. Thanks to William and me, the Brotherhood of Warrior Hunters will no be returning home empty-handed. Now, I know you're wondering how we did it, so here's a tip. Next time, bring a dog." "Very funny, da, very funny," R.J. grovels. Senior chuckles boastfully. "Don't feel bad. We'll share our Christmas birds with you. Won't we, William?" "Terrific," R.J. grumbles. Adding to his misery, James III confesses, "We saw a couple of birds, too, but Da and I both shot and missed." Senior laughs. "You can't get 'em all, lad." Just then, R.J. gets a closer look at his father's turkey, and his jaw drops. Senior boasts, "Ain't she a beauty? And the one William shot's no bad either." James III blurts, "Wow, Grandad, it's huge." William sighs, "Aye, it's even bigger than mine." "That's one fine bird, Da," James Jr. confesses. "And that's a fine bird as well, William. Looks like we'll be eating good tonight." William gives him a nod, then turns to his father, adding further insult to injury, crowing, "Well, you know the rules, Da. Man with the smallest, or in your case, no bird at all, does the dressing." "Bloody hell," R.J. huffs as he bends down to pick up the birds. With a shit-eating grin, Senior gives the dagger one last twist. "Like I said, next time, bring a dog." While father and son exchange jabs, James Jr. whispers, "If Da shot that bird, I'm the king's tailor." William flashes him a Cheshire cat grin. Shaking his head, James Jr. breaks into a giggle. As the group heads back to Bailey House, Senior whispers to William, "Thank you for having me back." Placing an arm around his grandfather's back, William leans in close and whispers, "Always."